First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my stepbrother pay for his wife's surgery using my inheritance money? First of all, I, 39 male, just want to say screw cancer. I've lost my mom and my son to this awful disease. My son passed away in 2015, but every day it still hurts the same. My mom and dad were divorced, and I mostly lived with my dad for several reasons. My stepbrother and I don't get along so well. To be frank, I didn't see him as a brother because of how he behaved during my mom's and my son's difficult days. I took care of my mother solely because my dad didn't care. He didn't even try to get the family to comfort me by at least visiting once in a while during my mom's sickness and after her death. No one wanted to spend time with me. I was not invited to birthdays, /family dinners, /New Year's Eve, etc. This year's Christmas was filled with tears and unpleasant memories. My loved ones weren't there, and I was literally wallowing in my misery, reminiscing about how my life used to be before everything was ruined. I remember one week after my son's death, my stepbrother had his wedding. He actually had the nerve to send me an invitation via my dad, thinking that I might attend. I was upset, not gonna lie. They downplayed my grief and made it worse to process my loss. I inherited money from my mom, but I haven't done anything with it yet. I decided to not make major decisions during the first year of grief. My days are the same, as I just visit my aunts from time to time and we talk. My dad and stepmom have been visiting my stepbrother's wife, who was in and out of the hospital for the past 2 months. I honestly don't ask, since my stepmom and her son don't feel comfortable talking about it. My dad sat with me and talked about the family putting money together to help pay for medical debts and prepare for my stepbrother's wife's surgery at the end of February. He asked since I now have money if I can contribute and help with the surgery. I refused and tried to change the subject, but he went on arguing about how I'm supposed to help my brother and support him, especially now. I only replied by asking him one question. I asked him, where was my brother when I was struggling? My dad didn't like that. He told me to let bygones be bygones and stop making this about me and making the situation hard for everyone. He said he promised my stepmom and stepbrother that he'll convince me to pay, and I'm making him look bad right now. We ended up yelling at each other, and then I told him that's not my problem. He got my aunt involved in this mess and keeps saying I'm giving up on family and I'm being spiteful and bitter. I felt guilty, but felt awful that they're asking for my mom's money. My mom, who they didn't even visit while she was sick. I understand what they're going through because I lived it with my son. It's every father's worst nightmare to see their son struggle like that. Then to have to suffer another great loss is too much. Now for the top comments. What's the old saying? You reap what you sow? No one was there for you, so how dare they demand money now? My advice? Go no contact with them. These people are selfish and toxic, not a-hole. Absolutely. They didn't stop for some time to see how I'm doing. They were busy with their lives acting like nothing happened. I know that life goes on, but I was literally left behind. My aunt was there for me. She lost her sister, so she understands my pain, though it may not be on the same level. But a loss is a loss, and my dad and his family didn't lose what I lost. Not a-hole. He has shown you he is not family. You owe him nothing. And shame on your father for making a deal with your money before getting it. This was what bothered me the most. He thinks he's entitled to the money because it's my mom's, and he's wrong to think that. Especially after his treatment and lack of sympathy when he saw what she was going through. That's what really hit me in your post. I felt guilty but felt awful that they're asking for my mom's money. My mom, who they didn't even visit while she was sick. That's all you need to say to your father. It's not my money, it's my mother's. And where were you and my brother when she was dying? Not a-hole. Your dad certainly is, though, for telling his family that he would convince you to pay. Screw him. You are not obligated to take care of anyone but yourself. If you want to help, that's great, but it seems they just want to use you. Do whatever makes you feel best. And it's beyond ridiculous Opie's dad is upset because he looked bad. He doesn't seem so concerned about the cancer, only with being the good guy in the situation by making you pay. Not a-hole, and don't let dad pressure you into something you don't want. So sorry for your losses. Now for the next story. Half-brothers threatened to sue me over $16,000. It costs them $158,000 and possibly their parents' marriage. When I, 25 female, was 3, My grandparents passed away. They set up a savings account in my name. The account was meant to be accessed by me when I was 21. At that point, it contained just over 300,000. My grandparents left me a letter saying they would like me to share the money fairly with any other Smith-Jones children, meaning my full siblings. Dad's a Smith, Mom's a Jones. By fairly, they meant that they wanted me to assess the situation and judge for myself what was fair. I never had full siblings, but I have two half-brothers, Mac and Joe Smith, who were dad and stepmom's kids. Due to the specific wording my grandparents used, I legally never had to give Mac or Joe any money. However, I see Mac and Joe as my brothers, and as the money came from our grandparents, I felt that the fairest thing would be to assign each of us 100,000, so we all got an equal-sized lump sum, and I figured that when Mac, the youngest, turned 21 and took his 100,000, we could split any remaining money. When I turned 21, Dad suggested I buy a house with my 100,000. I found a place I loved, but it was 130,000 and I couldn't get a mortgage. So Dad said I should borrow 30,000 from the account. I did, figuring I could pay it back before my brothers turned 21, and I have been repaying it. The account should be at 208,000 right now, but due to me withdrawing and then repaying that money, it's at 195,000, so I still owe 13,000. Joe turned 21 recently, and as I was giving him his 100,000, Joe noticed that there was less in the account than there should be. I explained and said I was going to put it all back before Mac, now 19, turns 21. Joe told Mac, and both boys said I stole from them and owe them the full 13,000 back, plus $3,000 of interest that they felt they would have gotten, and they wanted it all paid by the summer, which gave me less than 6 months to bring the account up to 211,000. I said I'd do it, but over 2 years as planned. The boys then wrote up a contract to that effect. I went to sign it until I saw that it said 6 months to pay it all back. I wouldn't sign as we agreed on 2 years. They said I should figure it out as they were entitled to that money and would be seeking legal advice. Later that day, I got an email, clearly written by them, saying that they intend to sue me for the 16,000, plus whatever's currently in the account, and additional damages and emotional distress on top of that. At this point in time, I'd given Joe about 50,000 of his 100,000 because he wanted it in installments. I responded that legally they were never entitled to any of it, and given their attitudes, I'd say they've already received an amount I deem fair, so that 50,000 was all they were getting. I then got a barrage of texts, calls, and emails yelling at me for going back on our deal. I blocked them. They then took to social media, saying that I was trying to screw them out of their inheritance, and rallying our extended family into harassing me over this, and it mostly worked as a lot of people messaged me. However, I got a message from this guy called Chris Smith. Chris said he was 27 and claimed to be my half-brother. I had never met him before, but he sent me photos of him as a kid with our dad, grandparents, and me. He showed me that he also had an account with 150,000 in it, and a scan of a letter from our grandparents saying this money was meant to be shared fairly among Dad's illegitimate children. Chris also told me we have another half-sibling, who is 18. He'd been looking for me for a while, but only found me when Dad shared Joe's post, which had me tagged. We checked with the solicitor to make sure, and as the boys are legitimate, they aren't entitled to anything in Chris's illegitimate kid fund, and as they are my half-siblings, they aren't entitled to anything in my Smith-Jones kids fund either. I sent the boys a letter formally telling them to back off, stop posting about me online, and enjoy the 50,000 because it's all they're getting. The day they received the letter, Chris got a private message from Dad asking if the boys can have some of Chris's fund. Chris also said no and told Dad we'd met. I told Mac and Joe about Chris and our other half-sibling, with Chris's permission. So, it looks like my grandparents, knowing about Chris before they passed, set up 2 funds. One for the kids Dad had with my mother, who was still his wife when they passed, and one for children born out of Dad's affairs, presumably to make sure no one tried to screw anyone else over out of hurt feelings. I'm getting a lot of crap, but holding firm on my decision. The boys have realized that I won't back down on this, and it sounds like I've caused a schism at their house, as Joe has all the money and no intention of sharing, so Mac is now feeling twice as screwed. Plus, stepmom apparently did not know about the other half-siblings, or that my half-sister was born after she and Dad got married, and she's made Dad move into a hotel. It sounds like Dad is looking for a long-term living arrangement outside of the family home because it looks like she is not letting him move back in. Dad is begging me to reconsider. But honestly, I'm done with all of them except Chris and my sister. Now for the top comments. Your grandparents were pretty forward-thinking. I think they just knew my dad well enough to know he'd mess around. You know, sometimes I wish I would maybe get an inheritance when any of my family passed. Then I see how money and possessions just destroy families. If I have anything left from my mom and stepdad, my sister and I are on great terms. When my dad passes, I'm worried I'm going to have to fight his wife and 2 daughters for the things I want. He has a lot of sentimental memorabilia I'm hoping for. The thing about inheritances is that no one is entitled to anything not specifically listed in the will. If the will states that the money goes to you at your discretion, then they're out of luck, and anything they did get was out of your own goodwill. Getting greedy and flying too close to the sun is a tale as old as time. Looks like they melted their wings, and are out of the money you were willing to give them that they weren't even entitled to in the first place. And what a shock that the one who already got his chunk won't share it fairly with the other one. It serves them right. You chose to give them £100,000 each out of your inheritance. That's not the same as them being entitled to 1/3 of the fund. You tried to do right by them and they tried to screw you over money you volunteered. Were the grandparents in question your maternal grandparents, Jones, or was it that your father's parents didn't approve of your stepmother / your father remarrying? Dad's parents. They never met my stepmom as far as I know, as he and mom were married when they passed away, and mom is still alive. The specificity seems to have assumed that he and mom would still be married, but he'd have had more affairs. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my nephew that the reason he has designer shoes is because his mother is irresponsible with the money my husband gives her? I actually did have a reason to say this. My husband has a middle-income job and I stay at home. We have a 4-year-old boy and his sister is a single mom with a 6-year-old boy, his cousin. She lives in public housing and my husband gives her about $300 per month, which I found out about a year ago by looking at his bank statements. This amounts to thousands of dollars per year. Something that has always annoyed me is that she spends what I see as absurd amounts of money on items for her son that he quickly outgrew. Since he was 2, he's worn triple-digit price tag sneakers. And for his 2nd birthday, she got the whole family together and got him a cake that she told me was over $200. I see that as a waste of money for people of our income level, let alone her own. Recently, we were all together at my in-laws' house, and her son tried to dunk on mine by making fun of him for getting clothes from Goodwill. Obviously, he is too young to know better, but this is just stupid. My own parents were middle class, but we shopped at Goodwill because it's a good deal, and it's stupid to be ashamed of it. What made me mad was that, after my son got visibly upset, my sister-in-law started laughing too, like it was a cute little kid thing. I said, "Well, you only have nice clothes because your mother is stupid with the money my husband gives her." Cue sister-in-law screaming at me, and husband looking awkwardly at the floor. He is non-confrontational. And me passive-aggressively smiling until we hightailed out of there. One of the things she yelled at me during the confrontation was that I'm lazy and don't work. It's true that I don't work, but I keep our household spending down by cooking budget meals and carefully planning our budget each week. The whole incident was pretty upsetting, but she's been known to be aggressive towards me in the past, and I didn't like that she was enjoying the opportunity for her son to be mean to mine when thousands of our own household income are going to hers each year. Now for the top judgment. Everyone sucks here. All 3 adults. You should not have dragged a 6-year-old child into this bitterness over money. It's between the adults. He might have behaved badly towards your son, but is barely old enough to tie his shoes, and is not responsible for his mother's poor decisions. If you have an issue with the money your husband gives his sister, raise it with your husband. Don't just lash out randomly at the most powerless person. Agreed. So disappointing to see yet another adult on this site rage at a child that they view as nothing but a stand-in for their parent. Also, that comeback straight up sounds like something a playground bully would say. Good job in showing a huge lack of maturity, OP. Everyone sucks here. Oh wow, a lot to unpack here. So you, a grown woman and mom, thought it was okay to trash talk a 6-year-old's mom to him? Granted that 6-year-old should not be bullying your son, but you should have age appropriately told him to be nicer, and then talk to your sister-in-law. Secondly, Your husband should have told you he's giving money to his sister instead of you having to find out in his bank statements. Not cool to hide something like that from your wife. That's $3,600 a year. Thirdly, you and your husband need to communicate about this money. Your sister-in-law's actions, her attitude and cruelty to your son, should have consequences. Fourthly, let's not police your sister's spending. Your husband gives that money to her as a gift, and it's really crappy when people add strings. If you resent what she spends it on, don't give her money. Problem solved. If you're worried about how this will affect her son, then buy him a few needed items she can pawn or sell, or offer to pay for some of his school or doctor bills. It's not my savings, so I don't feel like it's my choice. I wouldn't care if I thought she just needed the money, but I feel like she blows it on dumb stuff. Okay, Mrs. Big Shot. You really showed that 6-year-old kid, didn't you, sis? You're the a-hole. Agreed, you're the a-hole. In life, you can only control your actions, not your sister-in-law's spending or your husband's generosity. Instead, you chose to lash out at a child. Am I the a-hole for siding with my wife when she refused to let my son install the lock his mom got him for his room? I married my current wife 6 years ago. She has a 14-year-old son and I have a 16-year-old son from a previous marriage. We normally don't deal with a ton of issues as a blended family. My stepson, Joshua, is nice to everyone and likes sharing a lot. It's his way of forming strong bonds. My son, Scotty, however, is the complete opposite. He hates sharing. It is very private. He takes offense to his brother going to his room and borrowing stuff from him. He hates that Joshua does it frequently, but my wife and I thought it was completely normal as long as Joshua returns everything later. Scotty started complaining about it openly lately, saying Joshua's gone too far with his behavior, taking stuff constantly without permission. My wife and I came up with a solution, which was getting Scotty safe to store his valuable possessions. But Scotty said this wasn't enough since he has tons of stuff and can't put it all in safe. It all came to a head last week when Joshua took Scotty's Lego collection to take pictures of it outside house, but accidentally broke a couple of pieces. Scotty blew up and got his mom involved. My ex-wife then bought and sent him a lock to install in his bedroom door the same day, which got my wife go mad, calling her disrespectful and overstepping to send locks over to our house. They had a verbal fight on the phone and I returned home to see my wife arguing with Scotty after he refused to return the lock. I asked what the heck was going on, and my wife said Scotty was expecting her to let him install the lock his mom sent to our house. She said neither boy is allowed to have locks. Scotty said he was done with Joshua taking and breaking his stuff and begged me to say something and convinced my wife to let him keep the lock. But I told him my wife was right and that it was disrespectful of his mom to send a lock to our house. Scotty said if we're so against his mom getting him a lock, then I should get him one instead. But I refused, since my wife said neither boy is allowed a lock. So it's not like Joshua has a lock and Scotty doesn't. Scotty threw a fit, calling me terrible, and that he can't wait to move out and be done with our nonsense. We had Joshua apologize, but still Scotty isn't having it. My former in-laws argued that I was being unfair to Scotty after we complained to them, and told me to let him keep the lock and not side with my wife and her son. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Yes, you're the a-hole. I have news for you. Joshua is not nice to everyone. Being nice includes respecting other people's belongings and their privacy, but he's not doing that with your son. He invades Scotty's privacy, takes his stuff without permission, and apparently damages some of it. That's not sharing, for Pete's sake. That is taking without permission. We have a word for that, and it's not sharing. You are the problem here. You do nothing to correct Joshua's bad behavior or support Scotty in setting entirely reasonable boundaries for his privacy. You obviously favor your stepson and have zero respect for Scotty's need for privacy and security that his things belongs to him. Your ex was right on to send him a lock. Thank goodness she's looking out for his concerns, since you won't, and your a-hole wife doesn't think it matters. Fun fact, nice people typically don't steal. Fun fact too, taking without asking is stealing. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Poor Scotty. No privacy to one parent who doesn't stand up for him. If I was him, I'll move out. Don't worry, that's coming really soon. Part 2. My son moved out and doesn't want to talk to me. It says I'm the a-hole. But I just wanted to teach him sharing and completely disregard his boundaries and privacy. His mom shouldn't have gotten him a lock for your house without discussing this with you first. It's an adult issue that the child is now in the middle of, and he is going to resent you for it. You shouldn't let your wife get so explosive and make decisions about parenting without you, especially considering there is another parent in the situation. You should have been able to tell Scotty that she and you have to speak about this, because his mom did not mention this to either of you. At the end of the day, the lock should go on Scotty's door. He feels disrespected, and like he has no place he can go to be safe. With that being said, you can make a rule. If it's a lock with a key as opposed to one you can open with a coin, you, his father, will need to have a copy of the key as well, in case of any emergencies. As well, you will need to emphasize to him that he is not to have his room locked all hours of the day when he is in there. Set boundaries with your son and explain to his mother that she overstepped, and to please discuss this next time. What's stopping his wife from taking that key and unlocking the door for her son to resume stealing when Scotty is at his mom's or away? She can't be trusted to respect boundaries. I hope he has proved he has no backbone when it comes to her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my wife parent my daughter? My wife and I, both 38, married a year ago after dating for 2. I have a girl from a previous marriage, Zoe, 15, and wife has a son, Saul, 16. My wife comes from a Mexican, deeply religious family. I'm an atheist, and so is my ex-wife. That means that we don't force any religion upon Zoe. But if she feels drawn to any of them, then we're more than okay with letting her find her own spirituality. My wife feels different. She has raised Saul to be Catholic, and my stepson has told her that as soon as he turns 18, religion is over for him. And that every time my wife tries to bring him closer to our God, it only draws her further away. I've tried to talk to my wife, but she refuses to listen, and claims that Saul is her son, so the final decision comes from her and her family, not me. I had no other choice but to back off. But then my wife started to make some remarks about Zoe not being close to God, and that we had to do something to save her. I said that my ex and I decided to let her do her thing in that matter long ago, and that my daughter wasn't damned in any way. Recently, Zoe got a boyfriend, and my wife is pretty much against the matter. She has tried to tell her that she's too young, that she shouldn't be doing that, because in the eyes of God, she was getting strained. Zoe tries to be polite most of the time, but told me that my wife is being misogynistic and that she feels disrespected. Every time that happens, I cut my wife off. Things blew up when my wife found out that Zoe wasn't pill. I was outside with Saul fixing my bike when I heard her yelling at Zoe. We both got in and I saw my daughter on the couch crying. My wife was going at her pretty hard. She called my kids some pretty nasty choice words and called me an a-hole parent for letting my daughter sin so young. But the thing is that Zoe's on a pill for something regarding her period, and not because she's sexually active. Her mom took her to the doctor and told me a few weeks ago. Zoe ran to her room and my wife asked me why I never told her, and I said that I didn't think it needed to because it was my daughter's privacy. She said that I'm not letting her parent my daughter, but I told her that as long as she tries to force religion on a kid, parenting is not a choice. Now her family's at me for letting my daughter take the pill and that it's only an excuse to sleep with his boyfriend. They said that she has to deal with her period naturally, but I don't agree. I am going to give a judgment for this question. Not an a-hole. You should support your daughter. She's old enough to know her own mind about religion. If the doctor prescribes her the pill for period reasons, that is no business of your wife and certainly not of your in-laws. She's old enough to have medical privacy. But dude, you're a total a-hole for marrying this woman. How did you not have a conversation about religion and about how much input you get into raising each other's kids? These are two of the biggest topics any marriage will face, and you seem to be completely shocked that your wife has gone down this path. I have a feeling you blew through a ton of red flags on the way to the altar. Not an a-hole. She said Saul is her son, so the final decision comes from her and her family, not me. So by her own logic, she needs to back off your daughter. Honestly, after she was shouting at your daughter, I would have left her. Maybe not for good, but until she got her act together, and probably some therapy. I drove Zoe to her mother, but I didn't want to leave Saul alone with her, so I stayed. I can't take him with me, so I'm doing the best I can for both kids. Everyone sucks here. You entered into a marriage with major incompatibility issues. Now it's negatively affecting your daughter. Well done. People with different religious beliefs and practices can 100% be in committed relationships together, as long as they respect each other's beliefs. From the way it sounds, Opie and his wife have been more than fine together for quite a while. and his wife's attitude has gradually become more disrespectful, with a sudden and full-on lurch into screaming at his daughter over it. Opie isn't the a-hole for that, but with the way his wife is acting now, he needs to consider his options for protecting his daughter. Not the a-hole. Perhaps they can. However, it isn't the case in this scenario. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for punishing my daughter this way for what she told her blind dad? My husband Rod, 52 male, is legally blind. He is not completely blind, but close. It's not a genetic issue, but a brain injury that happened when he was a baby. Rod is completely independent, but needs a little bit of help for reading small letters, cooking, typing on a computer, etc. Rod, in my opinion, is a great father and husband. My daughter Raina, 15 female, has always been a little resentful of Rod. Growing up, she didn't have the normal father-daughter experience. Raina's always been into sports, but because of Rod's incapacity to engage in physical activity that involves coordination, they were never able to bond over that, and Raina never forgave Rod for it. My husband feels especially guilty about this. Raina is going through her angsty teenager phase. She has been acting out, is rude with everyone, especially my husband. Raina likes upsetting Rod, and he never defends himself, so he's the perfect victim. We were going in our first family outing since the global panini started. To go out, Rod uses this big, chunky glasses that makes his eyes look huge, almost like a caricature. My husband is super insecure of his appearance when he uses them, and our family knows it. My daughter comes downstairs and with the most offended tone of voice she says, "Oh my god, Dad! Are you trying to embarrass me? Your eyes look horrendous with those glasses on." I was pissed. I canceled the outing and told her to go to her room and to not come out until dinner time. Raina is big into her appearance. She wears colored, graduated contacts because, ironically, she needs to wear glasses, but she hates wearing them. She isn't uncomfortable wearing them or gets any headaches. She just doesn't like how she looks with glasses on. As a punishment, Raina will not be allowed to wear contacts for a month. I told Raina about her punishment and she is tremendously mad at me. She has a party in a week, and since the punishment is for a month, Raina will attend a party with glasses on. She's also returning back to in-person classes, so she will attend school wearing glasses. She says that she will apologize to Rod and will never disrespect him again, but I don't believe her. Rod chimed in and said that maybe the punishment is way too harsh, but I don't think so. Raina then called me names and locked herself in her bedroom. Rod says that I'm being way too hard on Raina and bordering a-hole territory, which is why I'm here. Now for the top comments. This seems like a proportionate reaction to me. She intentionally made a hurtful comment about someone's appearance. As punishment, she is not permitted to use something that enhances her appearance to herself, but she will still be able to function normally without. Not the a-hole. She's going to feel absolutely terrible about this as an adult, unless she's a narcissist. I wonder what the right way is to navigate this behavior? She obviously is insecure, which is a valid feeling, but you just can't crapple over your appearance because you're insecure. Maybe talk therapy, Opie? Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but this is really good for you to teach your daughter a lesson because she should not be disrespecting her father. If you let her get away with something like this, she'll think it's fine to do it in the future. Good on you for teaching your daughter morals and respect. Everyone sucks here. Taking away contacts, something she needs in order to see and function, is a harsh punishment. She should certainly be punished, but I think a better punishment is needed. Perhaps having her do volunteer work for people who are blind, or working with those who are going blind. It may open her up to the fact that she's lucky her father can see something rather than nothing, and how most people would kill to wear Coke bottle glasses as opposed to being totally blind. She has options. She can wear her glasses. She can then get an idea of how her dad feels. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not making sure my ex knew the names of our kids' teachers? My ex, 35 male, and I, 36 female, divorced last year. In the beginning, we were pretty civil. Things have changed. It is pretty hostile with me. We have 2 kids together. I have primary custody of our kids and have them about 75% of the time. The decree states the kids are to go to school in the zone based in my residence. Since I had moved out after our divorce, I'm in a new school zone. I have made him aware over the summer that I need to follow the decree and transfer. He was very against this. Ultimately, it's my decision, but I try to get his input before decisions are made. I made sure the kids were okay with this transition to a new school, then registered them for school. I texted him to tell him they were now registered for the new school. No response. The next day, the school had a meet the teacher night. I texted him the teacher's name. No response. One of our daughters wanted a pink streak in her hair. I texted him to ask if he was okay with that. No response. There were a few other texts I sent with no response from him. I thought this was so bizarre because pretty much all summer he's been harassing me. Because of this, I have retained a lawyer to do a modification so a judge makes us use a parenting app to text. It should limit the harassment and horrible texts. Morning of the first day of school came and I was getting the kids ready for school. My phone was on Do Not Disturb. Checked the time and I had 17 missed calls from 7 a.m. to 7:25. Then he called again. I told him I'm doing their hair, but I'll put you on speaker. He starts berating me, telling me I ruined this special moment for him, that he wanted to see them off. He made it seem to the kids that I intentionally left him out of loop. Even though our homes are in different school zones, he lives close. I told him we are leaving for school in 10 minutes, and he can meet us there. We hung up. I texted him the teachers' names again. He didn't show up. Later, I got many awful texts. He said I messed up his chance to see them off. He told me he needs to take custody of the kids for what I've done. He asked why he waited until the morning of the first day of school to make arrangements with me. And he said he blocked me because I called his new girlfriend's son a friend of our kids instead of brother. My kids had never said brother, but call him a BFF. He said I disrespected him and his family and this was my punishment. Him blocking me is like #goals because I know the kids need contact with him. But it was nice those few days not hearing from him. I feel like this is completely on him. Had he not blocked me, he would have received important texts regarding the kids and information on their new school and teachers' names. He also could have made arrangements the night prior after he was done punishing me. Lol. All he did was punish himself and his children. What if there had been an emergency? I could be blinded by my frustrations with him, but I need to know. Am I the a-hole? Man, you need to bring this up with a judge again. He legit is just harassing you. This type of attitude should warrant some attention from the judge. Not the a-hole, by the way. We have court in a couple weeks. This is just one of many examples where I'm pretty sure I'm in the right, but I could absolutely be blinded by my disdain for him. My attorney thinks I'm not the a-hole. He clearly is the a-hole. Also, he knew you were on speakerphone and berated you in front of your children. This seems one-sided as hell, and you're painting yourself as a victim and innocent person. Everything was good. Then, unexplained event, and now he's hostile. I told my children about changing schools, never confirmed they agreed or wanted to, and finished with, ultimately it's my choice. Screw him, but I'm kind enough to let him partake. Through your writing, it looks like your ex just randomly changed attitude, became awful, whatever, without any reason whatsoever. By the way, telling someone they messed up isn't mistreatment. Calling about your children isn't harassment. You really feel like the typical divorcee or ex. And to hell with gender here. Just being petty and making issues for the sake of it. Also, yes, he berated you over the phone. Put that on speaker though. Couldn't you have done better than manipulate the situation to your advantage? First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for possibly breaking up my parents? I think I'm the a-hole, but my mom and brother said I'm absolutely not. I thought I'd ask. The pandemic hit my family hard, and we are just barely scrapping by. Rent is paid, bills are paid, used the tiny bit left over for groceries and gas. My mom is working crazy hours, my dad is unemployed, and I, 16 female, work part-time at a fast food restaurant to help out. I babysat for our neighbors a few weeks ago, and with some of the money, I bought my brother, 8 male, a costume I found for pretty cheap at a discount store, because I'm pretty certain he wouldn't have gotten one otherwise, and I wanted him to be able to dress up at school. My dad demanded I give him the rest because he wanted to buy himself some drinks and my mom won't waste money on it. I said no, I was going to use it towards getting a bus pass so we could stop worrying about gas for the car I'm using. The next morning, my money was gone, but the drinks he wanted were there. I was really upset, and when my mom asked, I told her what happened. She got very angry and gave me the money to get a bus pass. I said I'd pay her back, but she told me not to worry about it. My dad is pissed I ratted him out. He's been an a-hole since, saying rude, sometimes inappropriate things to me since. Here's where I'm probably the a-hole. He made another crappy comment a few nights ago, and I lost my temper. I told him maybe if he got a job, he wouldn't have to steal from his 16-year-old daughter to buy his unnecessary vices. He started yelling, but I just left for work. I texted my mom letting her know everything that happened and asking it would be alright to go stay with a relative for a while. When I got back, my mom told me my brother confirmed my version of what happened, which was very different from my dad's. And my dad is now staying with my grandfather. My mom is talking about divorce, and my grandfather called to lecture me about making up stories to make my dad look like an a-hole and breaking up my family. I shouldn't have said what I did, but my mom keeps telling me it's no one's fault but his, even though my dad and grandfather are blaming me. Am I the a-hole for what essentially feels like breaking up my parents? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You did not break up your parents. You did not cause this fight. Any problem your parents have is between them. Your dad is the a-hole here. He is an adult who stole money from his 16-year-old daughter to buy himself drinks, while his partner is working overtime to support the entire family. If your mother is mad at him, it's not because you told her. It's because she knows how messed up his behavior is. Agreed. And if mom is talking divorce over this, I'm betting there's been problems for a while now, and this is just the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. Your dad is a total a-hole for stealing from you to support his habit and lying about it. Your mom sounds awesome and has every right to be pissed at him. Not the a-hole. It's not even the proverbial straw. Most adults can handle our partner's issues. Once those start spilling over and becoming problems for our kids, no. We as the partner may have signed on to a bunch of crap under the "till death do us part" clause, but damn if drinking, drugging, stealing, whoring, or whatever the crap show is, not the kid's fault or problem, ever. Not the a-hole. This was just the last straw for your mom. Obviously, there were other issues that you don't know about. You wouldn't even have been the a-hole if you had smashed the bottles. You were probably better off. He sounds horrible. Holy crap, not the a-hole. It is not your fault that your father is unemployed. It's also not your fault or responsibility to buy him alcohol because he wants it. It's nice of you, as a teenager, to work and help the family out, and that shows a lot of maturity and responsibility for you. The fact that your father feels entitled to steal the money you worked for to buy something completely unnecessary is disgusting. You didn't cause your father to leave. I have a funny feeling this is only the tip of the iceberg. Does he drink often? Does he demand that everyone wait on him hand and foot while he sits on his butt? He's coming across as very entitled and selfish, and those are good reasons for your mother to divorce him. And the fact that your grandfather is accusing you of making things up is interesting as well. Sounds like your father has a number of enablers that will make excuses for his selfishness. You may have been a catalyst to your mom finally getting the courage to leave him, but please don't take this as your fault. It isn't. Keep doing what you're doing and detach from any responsibility for your parents' marriage. They are the adults, and they can manage their problems themselves without putting you in the middle. Now for the second story. Am I the a-hole for possibly costing my son his best friend? My son, 10, has been playing Fortnite with his best friend for a couple years. For about a year and a half of that time, it was just the two of them playing, and in the last 6 months, more and more of their classmates have started to join in. My kids are with me every other week, and on the weeks they are here, I spend a good amount of time with them, chilling, doing homework, movies, etc. I live with my girlfriend and her 3 kids, so we spend a lot of time in the boys' very large bedroom. About 3 months ago, I started noticing my son being upset and found out that he was being kicked from the groups. And at first, I was concerned maybe he was being a jerk or whatever. About 2 months back, I was in their room and my son was playing with his friends, and I heard him kind of begging and saying, "Don't kick me." And then he said, "I don't have V-Bucks to get you that skin," and then he got kicked. I asked him what was going on, and he downplayed it, and I let it go. Since that point, I've seen the same thing happen a few more times, and I finally got him to open up to me, and it turns out he has been being bullied by his friend for a long time into giving/gifting skins, emotes, and other items. I explained to him that I got the V-Bucks for him to get stuff for himself, and that I can't afford to be getting his friend's stuff. He said he understood and said he would stop. It turns out that his friend has been doing this to all of his friends, and he opened up to me that he had given this kid 20 plus items, ranging from 1,200 to 2,000 V-Bucks, $12 to $20 each. So, I've spent anywhere from $250 to $400 on this kid that I know of. I had written out a long text to this kid's mom a couple weeks back, and for some reason, I decided not to send it. Well, Tuesday, yep, you guessed it, I was in the kid's bedroom and I heard, "No, Billy, I don't have enough V-Bucks to get you that skin." But then I heard, "You know what, Billy, I've given you more than 20 things and you've given me one." He was of course kicked from the group. That was the last straw for me. and I guess for my son too. It turns out that the other kids were giving this kid whatever he wanted, and that was why my son often was the one who would get kicked. I told him I was going to be sending his friend's mom a text explaining everything, and I also had some text messages with Billy saying if you buy me the skin, I will refriend you. He begged me not to send it, but I obviously thought it was important enough that the mom needed to know what her kid was doing. She replied back in a very understanding way, apologizing to my son and to me, and she said she would be talking to her son yesterday after school. So, my son didn't want to go to school today because he is worried about how things will be. So, am I the a-hole, or did I do the right thing? Hard to ruin a 5-year best friend relationship, and yes, I see that this kid wasn't really being a best friend. Oddly, I blame COVID for bringing this on. For 6 months, the only place they saw each other was online. And yes, the mother has offered to reimburse us for the V-Bucks. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Real best friends don't beg their friends to get something for them. Not beg. The kid is bullying others to give him skins by not allowing them to play with him if they don't give him skins. I think this is a really important distinction. The kid didn't beg or even ask. He demanded. He then made these demands a conditioned precedent for his friendship. Opie did the right thing, but now there will be a difficult time for his son. He may very well go to school and find that he is now without a friend group, since it sounds like the other friends are still under the bully's sway. That is rough, having to go to school every day without a friend group. Not the a-hole. You are protecting your son from being bullied and financially abused. Your son is not mature enough to understand the situation, and you have to do what is best for his interest. He will come to understand your reasons. Your son is not mature enough to understand the situation, and you have to do what is best for his interest. It's good for kids to have autonomy, but if they use their autonomy to do stupid crap, whether it's of their own volition or they're manipulated into doing it, sometimes you have to step in and do the right thing for them. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Now you need to sit down with your son, explaining why what was being done was so wrong. You don't, for the most part, buy friendships. That's what he was doing. Now let's read a poster's little update. So, I went to pick him up from school, and he was doing great. He said yes, his friend is mad at him, but that he was still talking to him. Billy has lost his gaming, phone, and internet privileges for 30 days, and was made to apologize to my son. I was trying to keep my posting somewhat short, so I didn't explain how much we talked about all of this. We go on nightly walks. I took the time to explain that real friends don't do this type of stuff, and my son totally understands that. I haven't heard back yet from the mom, but have no reason to think she won't follow through and pay us back. Thank you to all you that commented, and wow, I have never received awards like this before. Thank you to all, and to people posting that why did I do this or saying I made a bad choice. I will just say that I've had many parents and people reply they have gone through similar stuff and that this post hit home with them, so that reason enough to me. Thank you again, everyone. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for driving my daughter away from a teaching career? My wife is an anesthesiologist and I am an interventional cardiologist. As a result, all 3 of my children, 25 female, 21 female, 17 female, grew up extremely privileged. Being born when we were both established already, they have never seen what life is like under a family income of $800,000. My eldest 2 children are both planning on following in our footsteps and are planning on pursuing medicine. My youngest is in the process of looking at colleges and has recently become very passionate about pursuing a teaching career. My sister-in-law is a high school science teacher, and the 2 of them have been spending a lot of time talking about a career. I want to be clear. I have the utmost respect for the profession and the people who choose to dedicate their time to helping educate the future. However, I was concerned that my daughter has never really thought through the financial realities of the profession. My sister-in-law is married to a very successful lawyer, so my daughter hasn't been exposed to the lifestyle of the average educator. I don't think money is everything, but my youngest daughter's hobbies are skiing and horseback riding. She loves to shop and loves designer clothing. So last week, I sat her down and went through our family financials. I even contextualized it and explained how much cheaper certain items could be if we choose to make more economical choices. She is now much more hesitant and commit to teaching, and my sister-in-law thinks I'm a massive a-hole. I'm being accused of destroying her dreams and stepping on her passions. I don't want to push her into medicine if she doesn't care for it. That's neither good for her, her future mentors, or her future patients. I'm also not telling her not to pursue teaching. I just think she should understand the implications of living off of a 1/20th of the income. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You're right, your family is very privileged in the financial realm, And going over that with your daughter so that she can make the most well-informed choices for herself going forward is being a responsible parent. Too many kids go into college expecting to come out with a glorious lifestyle without fully comprehending how much time, effort, and income their desired lifestyle actually requires. So, showing her exactly what your family makes for income and how you're choosing to spend it and where changes could be made if it was needed is Finance 101 and will definitely help her avoid debt and other financial decisions that could cause her serious challenge down the road. Agreed, but just a note, certain single subject teachers where I live, urban West Coast, US, can make six figures in underprivileged districts. Not all teachers are destitute. Not the a-hole, you're preparing her for the reality that she is going to face after college. You are literally teaching her budgeting. You did not say don't pursue teaching. You just taught her about what different salaries can buy. If she isn't prepared to deal with the lifestyle it comes with, she shouldn't be a teacher. Honestly, it seems like this was the most responsible course of action for both of you. I really appreciated how OP also pointed out where they could cut spending if their income was lower. It really emphasizes how she can go be a teacher. She just needs to be realistic about what that means for her budget. No a-holes here. You're doing a good job by going over budgeting and finance stuff with your daughter and showing her the realities of a $40,000 a year job as contrasted with a $400,000 job. Absolutely not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law is extolling the virtues of her profession, which she loves. It's an honorable and admirable profession. Definitely not the a-hole. Your daughter is a passionate teenager. Certainly not the a-hole. Sounds like a good healthy family to me. I would say sister-in-law delved into a-hole territory when she attacked OP for bringing realism into their daughter's dream. Especially since sister-in-law doesn't actually realize how hard it is to live on a teacher's salary without a wealthy partner.
Update: I, 26 male, have always been the scapegoat of the family. Now that I got money, I suddenly have their attention. Original post: do you remember the stereotype of the oldest kids that are the victims of all the trauma their parents put them through? It kind of applies to me, considering I always was the one to blame for everything. They were nice for the first 6 years of my life before my twin siblings were born. Then suddenly I was the one they blamed for everything, and I was the one that had to learn everything by myself. It's like pushing someone in cold water so that they are forced to learn swimming if they don't want to die. My parents did the same, except that they didn't stop at swimming. I never got any help for homework. They wouldn't wash my clothes. They just put me in front of the washing machine and told me to figure it out, while they took care of my two younger twin siblings who are my sister and brother. If you think it's messed up that they haven't even told me how to do it, they also never cooked food for me too. They just said I should cook for myself. At 8 years old, I stood in front of the stove and cried and didn't know what to do. After half an hour of me just standing there and crying, they finally gave me something. This continued for my entire childhood. With my siblings, however, it went totally different. They spoiled them to death, did everything that I wished they did for me, and even cleaned their rooms for them because they didn't want them to try too hard. Unlike me, they also got pocket money. That was something I could just dream of. I hated my siblings for getting all this while I got nothing, even though it wasn't their fault. If my siblings did something wrong, they told me that I should have taught them better, like it's my responsibility to raise their children. I found a job at 17 and moved out as I couldn't bear it any longer. While life was hard, I finally was able to find a well-paying job, and from that, I started my own business with my best friend. It's a small IT company with only 6 employees besides us, but we make a really good money each month. We even have our own small office. I cut off contact with my parents a long time ago, after they said that I'd probably crawl back to them after 2 months because I'd be poor. Not only have I proved them wrong, right now I make more money each month than both of my parents combined in half a year. And of course they found out about my business. I already expected what they said before I even knew. In a condescending way, they demanded I give them 40% of my monthly income. They say I owe it to them for raising me. I owe those pieces of trash nothing, and I told them that. But they call and text me every day demanding more and more money. I just cannot stand the audacity of these people. But the best part is this though, a few weeks ago, my parents asked me via text message to give my siblings a job at my company because they were terrible at every job they had gotten so far. So I planned to let them do internship for a week, but figured that they couldn't even clean properly. My parents never taught them and spoiled them so much that they couldn't even handle a regular broom. Needless to say, I declined, and my parents threw shade at me again. I tried to block their numbers once, but they just changed them and tried contacting me again. I never planned to reconcile. They treated me badly my entire childhood, which unfortunately does not exclude physical violence from time to time. They do not deserve my time nor my money. I am more independent now than I ever was before, and I feel great about myself. I'm proud of what I achieved, and I know I am way better than them. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. You are making your own life. Maybe someday you will make your own family too, and the trauma of your upbringing will teach you how to do it right. I'm proud of you. Yes, I have a friend for whom this is true. She used her bad upbringing as a counter-example. Now she's an amazing parent and adopted us as her family. I am so proud of you for creating this business that supports you, but also supports the many other people who work with you. If I had to deal with what you describe, I would do as you have done. Keep being awesomely successful. It's funny how they spoiled these kids thinking they would be prodigal kids and now can't fix their issues, so they try to force the one they neglected into helping them look like better parents. Law. Depending on where you are, getting a no-contact order against them wouldn't be a bad idea. Exactly. I won't help them with anything and have also thought about doing something like that. Like they say, you've made your bed, now lie in it, and I think it perfectly fits. My favorite proverb is the axe forgets, the tree remembers. I'm so proud of you for getting out and working hard to be successful. Your happiness is the biggest FU to your parents. I think a restraining order is necessary in your case, just to be completely done with them. They don't deserve you in their lives. Take care, OP. We're all rooting for you. Very proud of you. I'm a 34-year-old woman with teen sons and 2 young girls, and I treat all of my kids equally. This wasn't so with my mom, as I have 2 younger sisters, twins, who were born when I was 5. Until they were born, I was the center of attention. After they were born, I didn't exist to her. In fact, she put me in foster care at 15 and kept them, and rubbed in my face that they got to do everything as a family that I didn't. And then I came into a lot of money from a car accident, and she suddenly wanted a relationship with me. And because I so desperately wanted a relationship with her and them, I fell for it. At 18, I had a ton of money, and when it ran out, suddenly I didn't exist again. So I went no contact. I struggled, but I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and going no contact with them has been the best decision of my life. Good job for starting your own business, and don't let them bring you down. You got this. And unlike my mom, you sound like an amazing mother. Now for the updates. I want to let you know that you convinced me to get a restraining order. I don't know if this really helps because I know them too well, but it's worth a try. Thanks all of you. Full update 2 months later. It's been 2 months since my original post, and many of you asked for an update, and maybe it's time for that. Actually, many things happened during this time. The real significant thing is that, after I refused to help my parents, they actually started doing literal propaganda against me to my siblings. I don't know what they tried to achieve there, as I didn't give a damn about what my siblings thought about me, but it still only shows their true nature. However, my sister recently visited me in the office. Unlike her brother, she didn't fall for our parents' lies, and she told me that she isn't dumb, and after failing many attempts to step into adult shoes, she realized what they had turned them into. She asked if she could stay with me. She asked if I could give her some sort of a 101 in life. Her brother should probably get something like this too, but he's too stubborn. The thing is, I don't hate my siblings. It's not their fault they were born into this family, and it's not their decision that they were treated the way they were. Just imagine the amount of humiliation for both parents if I am the one to fix what they had messed up. So I decided to help her. She is old enough to decide this for herself, but I told her that the moment she brings up my money, I would throw her out in an instant, just in case this is just another attempt of them trying to get money from me. But I don't think it is, because they wanted her to stay with them again. And when she refused, they called her a traitor, like she changed sides with their worst enemy or something. And I don't know why that amuses me so much. She did learn a few things pretty quickly, and I guess soon she is able to be fully independent. But as for her brother, my younger brother, he is so focused on his parents and still believes all their lies, so I have almost zero hopes for him. By the way, before anyone asks this, I thought about getting a restraining order, had no idea how hard it is to get one where I'm from. So I blocked their numbers, and when it didn't work, I got a second number. They are currently spamming the second number, and I enjoy the peace on my original phone number. To end this, I'd like to thank all of you for your support. I even got many DMs about people asking for jobs. That gave me a good laugh as well, but jokes aside, we have a complete team and currently aren't looking for more employees. How's your business as of late? Pretty good, to be honest. Success is always the best revenge. What if she asks how to handle financials? That's something they woefully do not teach in schools, and few people ever think to ask their parents. That's a different thing. If she brings up how to handle financials, that's okay, because that's a good thing to know. But in order to do that, she doesn't have to bring up my financials. This line will get blurred if you use yourself as an example when teaching her. There's nothing wrong with being open about finances. That depends on who brings it up. I have to assume that what she is doing could just be another attempt of my parents to take my money. If I bring it up to teach her, that's okay, but if she brings it up, I have to be careful. Congrats on your success. You don't owe anyone and you made your future happen. I hate that your parents think you owe them for raising you. Excuse me. They chose to become parents, and that comes with basic responsibilities. Not only that, they gave you bare bones, minimal basic childhood, and treated you poorly. And now your parents expect you to give them 40% of your earnings just because you're wealthy now. GTFO. Entitlement right there. Last story. My sister is infertile and I'm glad. I, 28 female, have an older sister, Angela, 30 female, whom I have never liked. She always had to compete with me, but never in a normal sibling rivalry way. Our entire life she always seemed resentful of my existence, as the spotlight couldn't perpetually shine on her, so she had to step on everything I enjoyed. So if I learned piano, she had to learn piano. If I excelled at a subject, she suddenly became a scholar in it. If I told my mom I had a crush, Angela would be dating that boy in a week. I would always tell my parents when she did this, but I was ignored, because sisters copy each other, and I can't gatekeep what she likes. She always monitored what activities I did and the clothes I wore, so she could outdo me. If I wore a flannel, Angela would come to school wearing an all-flannel dress. It was 2010 and that was peak fashion in our school LMAO. There was also more praise that followed Angela. Even if I took the initiative to begin the activity first, she was praised because she was better. My parents would miss work to attend her dance recitals, going to every single one, because the world would stop if they missed it. However, I remember maybe 2 of mine they attended, because they were stuck at work or were otherwise preoccupied. Angela reveled in this. She would make comments under her breath around our parents. Whenever our parents weren't around, she'd tell me how much she hated me and how I should stop trying because I would always come second to her. She also physically bullied me in school. Angela purposely tripped me, threw things at me, and hit me in the hallways on a nearly daily basis. The school had gotten involved multiple times, threatening Angela with suspension, and my parents fought it every time. My parents repeatedly told administration that this was a family matter and we were just bickering like normal sisters. She was never once reprimanded by either parent. Once, Angela was caught impaling a cat on the school fence, and my parents still defended her, saying this was normal teenage behavior. But I often was in trouble as Angela would start crying, saying how she was being targeted by the school when I had antagonized her. After one of these occasions, Angela cut and bruised herself to prove to Dad that I was the aggressor. I became a pariah due to Angela's malicious rumors about me, so it was difficult for me to make friends, so I resorted to only befriending people from other districts. Angela eventually made sure I had nobody by stalking them, befriending them, telling all my friends lies about how I was favored by our parents, and I constantly bullied and belittled her. She even stole boyfriends of mine doing this, convincing them I was horribly mean and an awful person that copied her every move. Once she catfished me on MySpace for 4 months and baited me into sending her nudes, which she proceeded to send my parents and everyone in school, including teachers. Later on, she told one of the boys I liked that those were actually her pictures and I had catfished her. The day of my high school graduation, my mom sat me down and told me Angela revealed the horrid harm she'd suffered at my hand, and I was no longer welcome in their home. After moving out the next day, my parents made very few attempts to communicate with me, only the occasional holiday and birthday text. All financial help was also abruptly ended as soon as I stepped foot on campus. I met my now husband shortly after this, and we were married within a year. They did not feel inclined to attend my wedding or even congratulate me. I even informed my parents when I had my first child 8 years ago as an opening, but they have made no attempt to contact or meet any of my 3 children. Best I know of Angela now from what I've heard is that she got married to one of the boyfriends she stole from me in high school, and she's been posting about her infertility issues and how she can't offer my parents their first grandbaby. After years of silence, I received a text at 8 this morning from my mother that I will copy and paste below. Hey OP, it's me, your mama. We haven't talked in a while and I surely miss you terribly. I wanted to let you know that your sister just had a miscarriage earlier this week. Angie and Justin are struggling a lot right now, so send something a little sweet her way. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. Get back to me. I love you. I hate to say it, but I'm glad she's suffering. I'm glad she doesn't get to be a mother. If she tormented me for years, what would she do to a child? Especially a girl. I don't wish death on any baby, but I know in my heart that child would be damaged by her. I'm angry at my parents for expecting me to have any sense of obligation to her when I don't even have any sense of obligation to them. They always believed her and dismissed me. I was always the problem child, and it's strange how my mother can be so warm to me when asking me to do something for my sister. Also, the fact they cared more about my sister's now dead fetus than my actual children, who wonder why they only have one set of grandparents. I feel some sort of guilt for it, but I refuse to offer any condolences to my destructive narcissistic sister, who has been justified in her bad behavior since birth. Maybe this will change her, help her develop empathy or any type of emotion that isn't hate or vindictiveness. If that happens, I would be more than willing to offer support, but until then I feel nothing but a small inkling of happiness that she's hurt. Am I awful for this? Now for the comments. Don't exist in that place anymore. Your mother didn't even ask about your kids, and it almost sounds like she wants to make Angela feel better at your expense. None of them should be able to contact you at this point. They should be blocked everywhere. It's not worth the upset, and this level of animosity takes a toll on you whether you realize it or not. Schadenfreude is one thing, but this is something else. If you haven't had therapy already, get some. Of course her mom didn't ask about her kids. She doesn't even know they exist. They've been radio silent for years. Shows how little mom knows or even cares about her daughter. Didn't she try to invite her mother after her first child was born? Pretty sure she knows they have grandkids. The parents just don't acknowledge them as theirs because they aren't from the golden child. OP is better off without any one of them. No. And you should report her pattern of behavior with every adopting agency you can think of. This isn't the time to wonder if you are the bad guy. It's time to both save bunches of kids and ruin her life. Right. I was thinking the county needs to know, so she can't adopt or foster through DCFS too. I'm glad too. She sounds awful. I hope she doesn't adopt. Personally, I would block them all and continue living my best life. The only thing those kinds of relationships are good for are from medical history. Honestly, that impaling a cat on the fence at school sounds like the start to psychotic or psychopathic behavior, and she should have been put in a mental hospital as soon as that was discovered. You sound like you are growing into a lovely family over the years, so try not to let those awful people into your life or the life of your family. Never look back.